Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with my colleague, Sean Moseni, and we're going to be talking about the Agentic AI advantage, identifying high impact opportunities across your organization. Just wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded. So if you need to get up and get some water, take a little break, we've got you covered. We'll be sending you the recording sometime after this wraps up, either today or tomorrow. Also, I believe all participants are muted, but we've got the chat. So if you've got any questions or comments, please go ahead and put it in there and one of us will get to you. All right, so let's go. Again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Anne. I am very happy to welcome you on behalf of Ascendient Learning, part of Accenture. If you don't know who we are Ascendient, but we are now part of Accenture LearnVantage. And because of that, we will be able to expand our instructor-led learning and our certification capabilities. So it's going to bring you more flexibility with public courses, private training, mentoring. We'll have access to the latest certifications like NVIDIA, AWS, and more. We'll have access to more customized learning journeys and also consulting. In addition, we'll be able to provide you with assessment tools, like if you've got a team or organization and you want to keep track of learning or quantify your ROI, we can do that as well. And the last one, I just want to say, it is not just a bullet on a PowerPoint. The personalized white glove service will always continue. And I have to say, I've worked with a bunch of the Ascendient folks for 5, 10, even 15 years. And you will not find a more dedicated, organized, or responsive team. We really do love what we do, and I've been on all sides of the business. So with that said, let's go ahead and meet Sean, who also loves what he does. He's an AI strategist and senior instructor. Not only does he have 20 years of teaching experience, he can bring his real world experience into the classroom because he is at the intersection of business and artificial intelligence. And he also helps organizations navigate AI responsibly and ethically. He doesn't just teach AI though. So if you've got questions like outside the range, he teaches a wide variety of courses in application development, even cloud. He is an AWS, IBM, and Google Cloud authorized trainer. And he's also a 3-time Instructor of the Year. And that is a big honor because there are a lot of criteria that go into that. And just some of that is the number of courses he teaches, the range, and also student evaluations. And I can tell you, I think one thing that sets Sean apart, I mean, obviously he's extremely knowledgeable, but he really has a knack for breaking down very difficult concepts and making them very clear and understandable. So that's why I'm going to be on this webinar today to just listen and to soak it all in, because I know there's a lot of things I'm going to be able to use. I'm non-technical, and I really do need to start using Agentic AI a little bit more in my digital marketing work. So I am super excited. I will pass it to Sean in a moment, but I did just want to say that if you or your team are looking for a customized webinar, let's say you're not really sure about what classes you want to take, if you just kind of want to get your feet wet with the technology, we can do a customized webinar for you. So I'll put the contact in the chat for you. If you would like to reach out, we would love to talk about that. Also love to talk about any sort of customized training programs for your team. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, and I'm going to turn it over to Sean, who will be dazzling you with AI.
Thank you very much, Anne. I really, really appreciate it. It was a perfect introduction. Let me just start sharing the content and we can go ahead from there. Okay, everybody, welcome. Welcome, everyone. As you see, that today's session is titled Agentic AI Advantage, Identifying the High Impact Opportunities Across Your Organization. So basically, we'll explore how your organization can apply some form of autonomous type of AI. I need to explain this very much at the beginning, that this particular webinar is about as you see in the title, is about finding the opportunities. So basically, this is having an approach from a business perspective rather than technical perspective, because we do have other webinars which we are running, mostly focusing on what type of frameworks we're going to be using, what are the APIs, what are the basically MCPs of the world and all that. In this particular lecture, our focus would be on finding the opportunities in your business that are a good candidate to be considered for agentic AI, because we are entering an era where automation thinks, adapt, as well as act, and doing all that stuff autonomously. So basically, you're expecting that is no longer is about what the AI knows, is more about what the AI can do. So let me go ahead and show you what the agenda is for the rest of the day. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to be defining the agentic AI. We'll look at the real world examples. We will identify some of the key opportunities areas, and also preparing the environment for the implementation. We'll be starting our lectures by defining what the agentic AI really is, and then how it's different from traditional AI systems. Then we're going to walk you through some real-world examples to ground the concept in practice. After that, we're going to guide you through how to spot high-impact opportunities area, right? So because everything starts from finding the opportunity, then go toward the design and implementation. And where are the places where agentic AI actually can truly make a difference in the organization? We'll also touch on how to prepare your organization for some form of a successful implementation, including, for example, change management, upskilling, and all that. And we'll finally wrap up with an open Q&A question session. So if anybody have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them. Okay. So basically, let's begin and let's take a moment and look at why this webinar is timely and relevant. If you look at this diagram, this is coming from McKinsey 2024 report. Generative AI adoption has surged by about 65% in just 1 year. That's a form of a staggering pace of change, and technically reflects how quickly organizations are moving to experiment with some form of a generative AI type of technology. But here's a catch. While Gen AI is great for some form of a content generation, conversation, right, and basically natural language processing, the next frontier is mostly agentic AI. Because these systems don't just produce insight, they act on them. Basically, they can plan, reason, and make decisions and take action on your behalf. Legacy automation solution can't keep up with majority of these expectations of today's digital businesses. So the organization that learn how to deploy autonomous, some form of a goal-driven agents will set the next standard in productivity, innovation, as well as the service quality. So the key takeaway here would be understanding the agentic system isn't just an IT responsibility, is more of a strategic type of business advantage. And that's exactly what we are here to explore today. So technically, we are focusing on a strategic type of business advantages. So basically, we're going to be introducing the core concept of our session, which is agentic AI. As I said before, why the traditional Gen AI and the tools that we have are mostly reactive, meaning that they wait for input and generate some form of a response. Agentic AI system basically take the things basically one step further. These are the systems that can plan, reason, and take action toward a particular goal. Think of a self-scheduling assistant that not only can propose calendar slots, but actually coordinates across systems to be able to book the meeting, submit the report, basically, follow up for your basically meetings and all that. And the same token, you can look at a fraud review agent. It doesn't just flag a transaction for you, which you have probably seen, right? When we travel and all that. It can investigate and pull all the supporting data and generate some information for a human probably to take a look at, basically another look before block somebody's account. So the key trait of Agentic AI would be autonomy, meaning that it can technically operate with minimal human input. It has some form of persistency, meaning that it can maintain awareness, understands the user's goal as well as the environment that are interacting with. Okay, very different from a basic chatbot that may come to your mind, because chatbot in general, they're passive. Okay, they just respond to the prompts. On the other hand, agentic systems are proactive. So basically, they can initiate actions based on, again, the goal, the memory, as well as the logic that is being provided. Okay. So before I dive deeper in basically the concept, let's get a quick pulse from the group. Where you currently are in your generative AI journey? Are you just exploring it? Have you started a pilot? Or you are already in the production? Or maybe you're actively scaling? Okay, this technically helped me to tailor some of the discussion that we have kind of to where majority of you are in terms of the stages of adaptability of agentic AI. And don't worry, all the answers going to be valid, right? Every organization is going to be moving on its own pace. Okay. Um, and at the same time you're answering, I would love if you think about what are the repetitive tasks in your organization that you can think maybe an agent can take care of, right? Drop it in the chat. I want to see if I can see the chat in here. Okay, data transformation. Okay. Okay, anybody else think of about anything that they want to do at this stage? If any particular task that you're thinking of, basically automation. Okay, I see a couple of answers are coming. Okay, great. So it's okay. You can start, thinking about it, right? And then we're going to be going through the next few pages to actually explore all those types of scenarios. Okay. So let's start evolution of AI from traditional to agentic. Okay. Let's take a moment and understand how we got in here, right? The evolution of the AI, which most probably majority of you are already familiar with, has moved in a clear stages over the last 2 decades. Specifically, I would say maybe from 2022, when the ChatGPT, came up with this, interactive interface. I guess majority have been kind of involved. And we begin in here basically with going through how the machine support the human. Okay, everything is started with the rule-based systems, right? These are mostly classic if-then type of automation script, right? Think of it like an email autoresponder or a simple workflow automation tool. They're kind of brittle, right? And couldn't handle edge cases, but they're still, based on the rule that you define, can type of automate the stuff like the scripting, or as I said, an email autoresponder and all that. Then you had the machine learning system. Okay, one step higher, because they provided some form of a prediction capability for us, right? So now we could forecast, for example, the demand, we could detect the anomalies, or we could score leads based on the training data. Okay, but still, they provide the insight, but it's the human that needs to make the final decision on the output of those machine learning models. Then we have rise of generative AI. Okay, particularly I'm talking about LLMs or large language models. Now we have a systems that can understand and produce some form of an NLP, right? As well as creating the code, images, and all that. Okay, so technically these tools, they started kind of started understanding the context. Okay, but if you think about these type of systems, even they're fundamentally reactive, waiting for the input and technically generating some form of output for you. Now we are entering the agentic AI phase, which these are the systems which have the capability to combine the ability to, as I said before, reason, plan, as well as acting. Okay, and they're working across multiple steps. They can use external tools and APIs. Okay, um, so remember what happened before. We had these complex tasks that human intervention is pretty much needed. Now with this type of automation, you probably have less and less of a human intervention as well as the oversight, okay? So the journey has been from the logic, which was rule-based systems, going to the learning, which was the ML and machine learning system, coming to generation, which was the Gen AI, and now we are talking about autonomous type of execution. So we'll see today mostly is the agentic AI, and that's not just the next step. I would say is a very huge leap from all the stages that we talked about, because you're going to be having a fundamental shift on how to integrate all these automation we talk about into your daily workflow. Okay. So we need to first define the agentic AI, right? So basically, now that we have seen where the agentic AI fits, right, in my broader type of evolution, let's look at what actually it is, right? So the agentic systems are the type of systems that can pursue goals through autonomous actions. Okay. These systems in general are not going to be waiting to be told exactly what to do every time that some situation arises. Instead, they understand an objective, plan the steps and execute these steps. Then execution is a very important part, right? And sometimes they have the capability even adjust to the in real time as the new information kind of arrives. There are four different key components, right, to an effective type of agentic system. Number one is that they are having some form of an intent-driven design, right? So the system understands the goal and outcome, not just the input. For example, schedule the meeting would be a goal that agent determines how. So you give the basically objective, which is schedule the meeting. The next step is to understand how, and that's the job of the agent. Long-term memory or context. One of the advantages is that communication with the agents will be remembered. All the interaction, decision, constraint, whatever that we had, it could be remembered, right? So this allows the system to avoid starting from scratch every time that you have the communication with. The next one, the number three, is the tool use. So agents don't act in isolation, meaning that they can use APIs, they can query databases, or interact with any form of a third-party tools like CRMs, customer relationship management, calendars, or your HR platforms to complete a particular task. Also, number four is self-monitoring. Okay, it's very crucial because agents need to be able to check their own progress, correct any form of mistakes along the way, and escalate the issues, and adapt the plans that probably already been configured for them. Okay, so if you think about it, this is a huge shift from traditional systems, right? It's not about just being more like that agents are smarter, right? Right? They're more functionality wise, if you think about them, they're mostly human like in how they operate. Okay. They behave less like a calculator, right? Mostly, I would say, like a junior colleague. Okay. It's more of a junior colleague rather than working like a calculator. So let's explore the agentic AI, what the agentic AI actually can do. how it make it different from the chatbot or basic automation flow. Okay, first, I have to look at the contextual reasoning. Okay, agents are not just responding, as I said before, and they are not working one message at a time. Okay, they can hold on to the context across a workflow. Actually, there's a lot of intersection between a business process management, right, and the way that agentic AI works. It's just that like a business project management is mostly predefined in terms of the steps, whereas in an agentic AI, these steps dynamically can change the path, right? For instance, an agent helping with onboarding maybe remember what department a new hire is in and use that to decide which tool to provision or what documents to share. So that's exactly what I was talking about, right? In terms of understanding the context. Next one is the tool orchestration. So as I said before, again, agentic systems can connect with APIs, any internal softwares, databases, or cloud services. So they just don't make decisions, they actually execute, meaning that there is a difference between a chatbot telling you to go basically check a dashboard and an agent that actually fetch the data for you and delivers into your inbox. So it's not just a conversation, it's about the actions that they do. And third one would be real-time decisioning. These systems are dynamic. They don't follow a static script, okay? They analyze some form of a changing input like a system status, user feedback, or any new data, and then they adjust accordingly, right? Think of them mostly like a live operators, not some form of a background script that's running. And lastly is the reusability. That's very clear, right? These agents can be designed as some form of a modular composable system. So once you create an agent to do something like, let's say, summarizing a legal document, probably that can be used across departments or even retrained for a slightly different task with very minimal effort, okay? And the combination of reasoning, execution, and flexibility is what makes the agentic AI so powerful. And we're gonna go through again the details of how each different type of feature, right, is gonna impacting our outcome, okay? So here, for us to really understand where the agentic AI fits, let's compare it with other common paradigms. Specifically, I'm talking about, let's say, RPA, which stands for robotic process automation, as well as the generative AI, okay? First, RPA, right? RPAs, or robotic process automations, are mostly a rule-based automation, good at following simple repetitive tasks, which can have very little type of variation. Think moving a file, copy the data from one system to another, right? It doesn't reason and it doesn't adapt. It's pretty much, RPAs are fragile and break easily when the process is being changing specifically at real time, all right? Specifically at real time. And then we had this generative AI. We already talked about it. It was a massive leap. Yes, NLP and content creation was big, right? The systems like, GPT, Claude, they're all being trained on massive amount of data set and can write emails, generate the code, summarize documents and more. But even these systems are still largely reactive, meaning that they generate the output, but they don't act on it. Now, agentic AI, again, takes a step further. Because of the reasoning, because of the memory, because of the action, they can understand your intent, plan how to achieve it, and use tools, APIs, and to be able to monitor themselves if there is a specific adjustment needed, right? So there's a very popular quote that I love. It says, if generative AI is a brain, agentic AI is the brain with hands, right? It doesn't just think or create, it actually acts. Okay, and that's what it makes it transformational in the organizations, which they're looking at to scale their operations, personalize the services, or they're looking at some form of automation for their complex processes. Okay, now we are coming to this page illustrating what I call a capability ladder, right? It shows how the capability of AI systems have evolved over time and where the agentic AI sits at the top, right? At the base of the ladder, we have these passive systems, right? Purely reactive, right? Think of search engines or basic chatbots, right? Oh, sorry, a QA bot, right? They wait for the input and return some form of a static result, and there is no memory or no adaptation. Then we have the reactive system. This can handle a bit more logic and context. For example, a customer support chatbot that leverages a decision tree to guide you through an scripted troubleshooting process. These we call them reactive systems. Then above them, we have interactive systems. These are including the new generative AI stuff, right? Like a ChatGPT, Claude. They understand the context that they can generate kind of a coherent, kind of useful responses. But again, they're lacking the action. And finally, we are talking about agentic systems, which are proactive systems. Okay, they don't just wait for your instructions. They can initiate the action, pursue the goals, and technically learn from the results. For the learning process, they may leverage another LLM. That's fine, but that is considered another tool, right? So they can complete all these workflows autonomously and then reason through all these different types of problems and obstacles, and then delegate to sub-agents if needed. Okay. So why we brought us this ladder? Because this kind of help us evaluate where a current tool or solution fits and where would I want to evolve next. You may not want to be fully reactive. You may just want to be having some interactive system, right? But again, that's for you to decide on what you want to do. And here we start talking about a concept of a system one, system two thinking, right? And this applies also to the AI systems, which we have some fast thinking agents, which these type of agents operate reflexive, basically operate in a reflexive fashion, right? They are ideal for tasks that require speed, some form of a quick pattern recognition, and simple logic, right? For example, an alerting agent that monitors the uptime and immediately flag anomalies, right? It doesn't need deep reasoning. It just fast and basically accurate reaction based on some form of a predefined triggers. That's called, a fast thinking agent. On the other hand, we have slow thinking agents, right? These are designed for more complex tasks, right? They can reason through multiple, like a multi-step processes, handle different types of ambiguity, right? And make trade-offs. For example, if you have an agent asked with evaluation of vendors for procurement based on pricing, compliance, and past performances, that would be considered slow thinking, some form of a deliberative type of process, one that mostly requires context, memory, and the planning, right? What's powerful is that when you combine both types of agents, right, and in many cases you end up actually combining both, right? You can imagine an AI support system that instantly categorize an incoming ticket like a fast thinking, right? But also evaluates the customer sentiment, purchase history, as well as the account risk to decide whether to escalate it to a human, which mostly this becomes more of a slow thinking type of agent, right? So in agentic architecture, you can design for both, use more of a lightweight agents for speed and responsiveness, and more advanced planners for higher order type of decision making, right? This is a kind of a multi-layered orchestration, which is technically is the key innovation for us. And we're going to be seeing the use of these ones in a bunch of examples that I come up in the next couple of pages. Last point in this section would be that multimodal interactions, right? One of the defining features of the advanced agentic system is that their ability to be able to operate in multimodal fashion, right? That means that they're going to be interacting with and interpret multiple types of input as well as the output formats, right? traditionally, most of the AI systems have been limited to a single modality, right? Either text or structured data or images and all that. But agents today can handle text, voice, charts, documents, even visual or different types of data actually in real time. I understand we do have a number of foundation models these days that manage multimodal, but the agent's going to be doing a better job, and I'm going to explain why, right? Let's take a clinical assistant as an example, right? This kind of agent can listen to the patient's spoken symptom, right? At the same time, read their medical charts, analyze the recent test result in PDF format that they have, and then take appropriate next step, right? Whether it's flagging an issue for doctor, that would be one case, booking a follow-up would be another case, or updating the electronic health record is going to be a next step, right? So the output can just be as flexible as you want. And agents can respond through, let's say, email, update your dashboard, trigger a workflow, send a text alert, or notify a Slack channel. These are all the capabilities the agent can follow, right? And they can even speak, right? Think voice assistant or call center bots that they can actually speak. So this multimodal capability is especially important for real-world use cases that can, span teams, departments, technologies, and is able to notify agents, right? And the agents in this case mostly are, some because of this multimodality, there are some form of a fluent collaborators, not some, silent kind of background workers for us, because technically they can interact as well. Okay. So as you think about, and now we are entering about agent opportunities, right? As you think about all these agent opportunities in your organization, consider the following. Number one, what type of input output would a human need to complete this task? Also, if your agent can do the same across the modalities, right? Text, video, voice, whatever, image and all that, then in that case, you basically have made the decision for the right use case. Let me see before I move to the next section on some of these, if there's a question. Will you be sharing the video? Yes, we do. Will you be sharing the video? Yes, we're gonna be sharing the videos. Okay, sounds good? Okay, great. Let's go next. Okay, so in terms of industry scope overview, one of the defining features of the basically advanced agentic AI system is that if you think about it, like we have many different types of capabilities, right? And let me just start. So if you think about, let me see another question before I go ahead. I want to make sure I answer the question. Oh, sorry. Okay, that was a chat. So now that we understand what the agentic AI is, right, and what it can do, let's look at how it's already being applied across different industries. One of the biggest misconception in the agentic AI is that is only useful in the kind of a tech-heavy, highly automated environment, right? But the reality is that this is more of a horizontal type of technology. It can drive values, in some form of a creative, analytical, or operational, as well as the customer facing roles as well. And we're going to be explaining some of these use cases, okay? And this slide gives you a quick snapshot of a broad landscape that we're going to discuss in upcoming pages. And we're going to be exploring some examples in 4 different industries, right? We're going to be looking at healthcare, financial services, retail, as well as the manufacturing, as well as the logistics, okay? In each case, we'll look at how the agentic AI is solving practical problems, right? And don't forget, you're not necessarily talking about replacing entire jobs, right? It's more of an augmenting a workflow in the ways that were previously too complex for the automation, okay? And also keep in mind that agents you will see in these examples are often look different from traditional bots. They're going to be acting behind the scenes and coordinating multiple different types of systems and processes, okay? And the case studies that we're going to be looking at is meant to inspire your thinking and show what is possible, regardless of what sector you are in, right? So I'm sure you can find, even if you're not from one of these four sectors, healthcare, financial services, retail, and manufacturing, I'm pretty sure you can find the use case because a lot of similarities you can find, right? In many of these ones. We're going to start with some of the healthcare application, right? Healthcare actually is one of the most promising areas of the agentic AI, not because it's simple, because it's highly repetitive, documentation heavy, and chronically under resource, right? So that's why the agentic AI is actually applicable to healthcare a lot. One standard example is the use of digital scribe systems like a pet at home, right? We're going to discuss pet at home a little bit in detail. These agents in the healthcare are able to listen in on live consultations, transcribe the conversations, right, with high accuracy structure and notes according to your medical standards, and enter them into the EMR, all without any form of interrupting the clinician at the same time that they're doing consultation or slowing down the care itself. Okay. Another use case would be patient triage, right? Agentic system have the capability to collect all the symptom data from the patient, right? Analyze the urgency and then determine whether a particular patient needs an in-person appointment, a telehealth consult, or can self-manage it. You can do it all automatically, right? These systems consider not just the symptoms that the patient had, but also the timing, the location, as well as any available resources, which might be the patient's health background, right? So we also seeing success with the real-time patient monitoring. So agents can track some wearable that you may have in your hands, in your, whatever, right? Or device data like the heart rate, oxygen saturation, and glucose level, and then escalate any form of anomalies, right? What makes these agents very powerful is their ability to act across the systems, calling a nurse, scheduling a follow-up, or notifying a particular caregiver. Okay. Finally, we are moving toward the multi-agent system in care. So one agent document, another agent interpret the imaging for that particular patient, another agent handles the follow-up logistics and all that. So these agents can collaborate like the humans do, okay? And what's important here is that the agentic AI doesn't replace the doctors in this case, right? Just make their time more impactful, right? Instead of spending time to reviewing all that stuff, right? Agentic AI can do them for them and pretty much create an aggregated data, which basically the doctor needs to make the final decision, right? So the doctors can focus on their clinical judgment instead of documentation and task switching. That was the healthcare. What about the financial system, everybody? Pretty much, uh, this is an industry that is having we consider the financial systems data rich, right? Process intensive and kind of risk sensitive, okay? So this is also a space where agentic AI can provide high return on investment if deployed properly. Okay, so a great starting point is the fraud detection, right? Traditional systems just flag anomalies, but that often result in false positives and overload for human reviews. With the agentic AI, we can go further, right? So agents doesn't just flag a transaction. It can look up all the related account activity, okay? Checks all the behavioral patterns, pull your KYC or know your customer data, and then generate a summary for compliance review. It becomes an active investigator. Your agent, in this case, is considered an active investigator, not just a sensor, just to flag an anomaly, right? Then there is a customer service, right? Many of the banks and fintechs are deploying agents trained on product documentation, policy updates, and transaction workflow. So these agents can resolve, routine issue like a card replacements or explain interest charges and even update internal systems in real time. We're also seeing financial co-pilot agents, right? These tools can help the customers or small businesses by summarizing their monthly spending, identifying all the unusual charges, offering personalized financial advice, and they're built to engage in an ongoing kind of goal-directed conversation and not just a one-off response, right? So you can have interaction based on the goals that is being defined already for those agents. And finally, a critical enterprise function, which is the compliance reporting, right? Instead of relying solely on analytics to compile the reports, agents have the capability to automate parts of the process, technically gathering the data, format your reports, flag any regulation inconsistency, and even submitting the alerts at the end of the day, right? Which pretty much is a huge cut down in cycle time and the human effort, right? As you see, as with the healthcare, the goal here is augmentation and not the replacement. Because whenever you say agentic, it was like, oh, my job will be replaced. Not necessarily. We are talking about augmentation, okay? Because you can free up a specialist for higher value decision making while improve your consistency, speed, and auditability. Okay, so far so good. Next one is the retail use case. So retail is also a fantastic environment for agentic AI because it blends both customer facing as well as some backend operation tasks, and agents can play a role in both, right? One of the most immediate win is restocking optimization, right? And a store agent can technically monitor your real-time point of sale data, detect when the stock is running low, automatically trigger some, refilling orders. They can even take into account, local trends, weather, or an event calendars to forecast the demand. So you can bring some other factors in. Another emerging area would be visual search. Imagine a customer which upload a photo of a pair of shoes or style they like. So an agentic system has the capability to analyze the image, do the cross-reference with the inventory that your retail has, and suggest a similar in-stock products. And that would be in real time, instantly, right? This is going to be enhancing your personalization and shorten your sales cycle. And in return and support, again, agentic system for a retail can go beyond providing a kind of a return label, right? They can check order history, validate the any form of warranty, because every product comes with warranty, right? It can just detect what is the warranty eligibility, right? Update the inventory system, and at the end, issue a refund. All these actions happening while keeping the customer updated through the email, SMS, or any form of interaction that you already set up. And none of these tickets needed to be manually escalated unless sometimes truly unusual happens. Then escalation can be the case, right? Another powerful example is a personalized offer generation as well. So instead of relying on static segments, all these agentic systems can analyze all the past behavior. You can look at your cart, any cart that you abandoned before, shopping cart that you abandoned, and look at all those patterns. Look at seasonality and then purchase history to tailor a particular real-time incentives, right? Right at the moment that the agent thinks is the best to be represented to the client, right? Again, what ties all these examples together is orchestration, right? These agents operate across the CRMs, customer relationship managements, enterprise resource plannings, ERPs, e-commerce platforms, and marketing systems. So they act like a digital store managers, handling many of these repetitive tasks, recommending some actions for you, and ensuring the consistency across different types of channels, right? And then last one is the manufacturing and logistics, right? These basically agentic systems has incredible potential because of the complexity, speed, and independence involved in operations. So let's start with intelligent dispatch agents. Okay, that's in manufacturing, right? These agents have the capability to coordinate shipments, but analyzing the traffic patterns, delivery windows, and what is the driver availability, as well as the warehouse constraint, right? Then they're gonna adjust the route or a schedule in real time. If you think about them, they are very proactive, right? If weather delays a route, they can technically reroute before a human even sees the issue. That was the intelligent dispatch type of agent. Another one is the predictive maintenance agents, right? These monitor the machine logs, sensors data, as well as any form of a historical maintenance record. So when they detect signs of failure, like vibration patterns or maybe temperature spikes, they don't just send an alert, right? In this case, they can generate a work order, schedule a technician, and order the parts all without human intervention, right? Another like a very nice area is robotic orchestration, right? In advanced facilities, agent can translate human interactions like pack and ship order 517 or refill shelf, let's say B3, into a sequence, kind of a sequenced command for a robotic arms or a drone, right? And they can also monitor the progress to confirm task completion. And lastly, think about a cross-functional coordination, which technically one agent might monitor your procurement, another agent look at your quality assurance, and another one inventory levels, right? Together they can communicate to balance the cost, speed, and the quality. And when these type of interactions being done right, you create some form of a self-optimizing supply chain. And in that case, your manufacturing process is already automated, right? So, but don't forget, agentic AI at the end of the day, at the end of the day, this scenario brings you the logic and adaptability, right? Allows you to automate, to be able to handle the complexity, and pretty much don't go through some form of a repetition. And that opens the door to smarter factories, right? Learner logistics is very important, and faster turnaround time. Okay. Now I want to look at the pets at home, which I give you an example, which is a real UK-based type of a retail chain that offers, pet products and pretty much includes, grooming, any form of uh, veterinary type of services, and the pet care. Okay, they have been exploring digital innovation, including the AI and automation, to be able to enhance their customer and some form of a clinician experiences, especially into their veterinary type of services, as well as the something called vets for pets. Okay, let's look at the real case study, pets at home, and see how it works. What they did, they implemented a multi-agent architecture involving a scribe, assistant, and workflow coordinator to support their veterinary type of teams, right? These agents are able to collaborate to handle admin tasks, offer some decision support, and keep the workflow on track. What was the result? About 30% reduction in admin time for clinicians. So they can now free them up to be able to focus on the pets and their owners rather than, working with those processes. And technically, they found that a noticeable boost in the customer satisfaction through the real-time responsive support, right? The strategy they used is very instructive, right? They started small, proved a clear ROI, return on investment, right? And then scaled horizontally to the other unit, right? This example technically shows even in a traditional high-touch environment like veterinary care, right? Agentic systems can make a measurable impact. Okay, so far so good. So that's an example. We call it like a pets at home. Now, let's zoom in how these agentic systems actually work under the hood. And this slide technically tries to give you a simplified view of a multi-agent architecture. As I said before, this is not a by any means a technical basically agentic AI session, but this is probably as technical as we get, right? So at the center, we see there is something called a planner agent, sometimes called an orchestrator, right? Its job is to understand the goal and break it down into some form of a discrete tasks. For example, schedule a follow-up visit might become, when you break it down, to check the availability, confirm insurance, generate appointment, and send confirmation. Good? So from there, the planner agent is going to delegate this to these multiple steps to executor agents. Each one is specialized for different function. You might have a retriever agent, which technically fetch relevant knowledge or past records. You might have a tool executor agent, which calls the APIs, queries a CRM, or submit the forms. And then you have a verification agent, which checks for compliance or completeness before the final output, right? So these agents often share the memory, maintain the state, so they can reason over what's already being done and what still needs to be happening in the near future, right? This is critical for long tasks that span the systems or require decision across multiple steps. And the beauty of these model is the modularity, right? You can reuse agents across different type of processes. For example, the same retriever used in customer support can be reused in HR onboarding. This architecture also makes debugger easier. It technically sometimes breaks or returns bad results, or you can isolate which agent needs retraining, okay, or refinement or another configuration, rather than tearing down the whole system, okay? So far so good. So that's basically what we do. Think of this more like a digital team that each agent has a job. So the planner is going to be assigning the work, and together they're going to complete a goal autonomously, okay? Reliably as well as efficiently, because you have breaking down of all these different types of tasks. Okay, so far so good. Now, here I'm going to be summarizing these wide applicability of agentic AI using a use case matrix, right? Which technically maps the example deployment across different types of industries, right? Highlighting the task type, the kind of agent involved, right? And outcome achieved, right? So for example, in the healthcare, we have a triage agent that classified incoming patient symptom, suggests appropriate next step. One system improve admission speed by about 20%, simply by what? By routing the cases more efficiently. In finance, the fraud review agent handled, investigation prep, kind of getting all the evidence, flag any form of basically any irregulation, right? And then getting the alerts. And technically, these agents cut the false positive by 35%, reducing any form of manual workload for analysis, right? And in the retail, we have these stock monitoring agents acting as a retail kind of a kind of a real-time notifiers. So when a shelf inventory drops below a threshold, the agent doesn't just notify, technically initiates reordering, restocking workflows, and the result would be that inventory accuracy above 90% and fewer missed sales happen, right? And each row of this metric shows a pattern, right? Agents that don't just report, they reason and act. So they can identify repeatable tasks, deploy some form of a specialized agents, and measure the outcome like speed, accuracy, or satisfaction. So here, before we move on, let's make a moment and recap. What we covered so far was Agentic AI is not just a theoretical thing, right? It's already being used across industries and driving, real business outcomes. Whether it's, reducing admin time in healthcare, cutting the false positive in finance, or improving your inventory accuracy inside the retail. Okay. Next one. This is the core of this lecture, everybody. Identifying the high impact opportunities. Okay. So basically, in your organization, as your organization begin with exploring the agentic AI, one of the biggest mistake is starting with the wrong use case. It's tempting to do everything big, visible, futuristic, but the reality is that agentic AI are best for some form of a structured, high friction, medium complexity tasks, right? These are the best for agentic AI. These are the workflows that are too complicated for traditional automation, but they are at the same time too repetitive, right? Or time consuming for people to continue doing them manually, right? The challenge is that not all work is agent friendly. Some of the processes are undocumented, others are heavily regulated or emotionally sensitive. So some lack clear success metrics too. So these are not the good use cases for an agent, everybody, right? So that's why we need a systematic approach to select the opportunities, right? Which the AI agents are the best to match. And those are the impact, feasibility, as well as the effort. These are the three factors we use to figure out if an agentic AI is a good candidate. Okay. This framework is called a three circles of agentic opportunity, which pretty much is a practical way to evaluate which tasks or workflows are the best candidates for your agentic type of automation. Each circle represents a critical success factor. Number one is the high impact. The task or workflow should deliver a meaningful value if optimized, right? This could be cost saving, time reduction, improved customer satisfaction, or reduced error. If it doesn't move a needle, right, it's probably not worth building an agent AI for, right? AI agent for. Next one is high feasibility, right? It's all about data quality, process maturity, as well as the clarity of the success. Do we know how this process works? Is it documented? These are the questions you need to answer, right? Are the inputs digital and accessible? And are the outcomes measurable? That's for the high feasibility. The third one is low effort, right? Some of the tasks are very automatable, but would require a major organization change to implement them. Think about legacy systems, multiple departments, or tight regulation. We want to start with the tasks that are relatively isolated and easy to pilot, okay? Where all these three circles overlap, that's where we call them sweet spot, right? Those are the use cases that are big enough to matter, small enough to try, and clear enough to build. So that's where that intersection is, right? This is especially useful when you're trying to convince the stakeholders or prioritize among, multiple AI ideas. So pretty much we can literally map candidate tasks to this Venn diagram and visually see which one diverts the investment for us, right? And basically, want to put my time, right? When I want to put the effort, there's a cost associated and the money, that investment should make sense. And what I'm trying to tell you is these cases that intersection of the three circles are the ones that most probably is the good candidate for your agentic systems. Now, and in this slide, we're going to be going through all these three different circles, right? A little bit more in detail. So when you're evaluating where to apply the agentic AI, one of the most important places is to start is it high impact, right? A task is considered high impact if optimizing it drives some real measurable value, which could mean saving time, reducing the cost, improving customer satisfaction, or eliminating some form of a friction in the high value processes, right? Some good example would be automating onboarding the emails, right? If you automate onboarding emails, that would be a good example. Reducing time to resolution in customer support, right? AI summarization for legal discovery or R&D reports, right? Because these are the areas where the time is money. If a machine can summarize complex documents accurately, it saves hours of highly paid effort, right? Right? So the rule of thumb here is that impact when is high, the task is central to team's throughput or customer experience, right? If it doesn't create impact, probably you want to skip the agent. Next one would be high feasibility examples, right? So pretty much structured input output. The tasks which involve forms, templates, or predictable steps are much easier to automate. So they are good use cases for agentic AI. Documented logic. If the business logic is already captured somewhere, like in a decision tree or an SOP, right, your standard operating procedure, an agent can be trained or coded to follow that logic with less ambiguity, right? So that's a good use case. Existing API or interaction, if the systems involve have interfaces that an agent can plug into, that's the huge enabler, right? For example, if your CRM, calendar, HR platform has an API access, you are already basically halfway there, right? Pretty much some of the high feasibility use cases going to be like ticket classification and routing it in the IT or support, summarizing Zoom transcript into action items, and validating the invoice data before it is being sent to a finance. The third one is the low effort. That's very clear, everybody. So if you're basically have a task which is high impact and is technically feasible, may still be too complex, right, to tackle immediately or require massive coordination or re-engineering or policy changes. That's why low effort is another factor, right? So you are targeting mostly isolated workflows, right? Tasks that sit within a single team or department where you don't need cross-functional alignment, right? Tax savvy type of teams, right? So the teams that are already using SaaS platforms, automation, or working in low code, no code type of environment will adapt to the agents very quickly. Existing shadow ITs, right? If the teams are already using, spreadsheets, macros, or doc type of taped solution to get some form of things done, it's a great sign that it means there is a demand. So you can replace some of these fragile solutions with the basically an AI agent, okay? Creating daily summaries, organizing some incoming resumes into your categories, auto-generating your performance report from, analytics dashboard and stuff like that. These are the common use cases. And then this is showing you a 2x2 prioritization matrix, which help you to evaluate an agentic AI opportunity based on the two key dimensions. Again, one is the business impact, another one is the complexity, right? So the bottom right, we have our quick wins. These are the ideal starting points, which you can technically looking at. They are high impact and relatively easy to implement, making them great candidates for early adoption for the agentic AI. Top right is for strategic type of project. These are also high impact, but come with some greater complexity. Think of these as a longer term type of investment that require more planning and coordination. Bottom left is low priority, useful but not urgent. These might be nice to have type of agents that don't drive much of a value. And finally, the top left is the avoid zone. These opportunities are hard to implement and don't deliver enough impact. So to justify the effort, so just forget about them, right? So that's what we got. And then at the end of the day, you can bring them and have some scoring mechanism, right? And translate these three circles frameworks that I just show you into something that you can use in planning meetings or internal reviews as a use case mapping templates, right? This table kind of show you how you can objectively compare and prioritize some different type of candidate use case by department, task, and agent fit, plus some additional notes, which make it simple but very powerful for sparking some alignments, right? For example, I'm saying sales. On the sales side, I could have a lead follow-up email. This is a 3 checkpoints type of agent fit because it's frequent, it's time-consuming, it's structured, and impactful, right? Plus, it frees up the sales rep, right, to focus on real selling. On the IT side, I can do access provisioning. So this is 2 checkpoint case, which is feasible and impactful, but it might involve some security and policy alignment. So effort is moderate. And on the marketing side, an SEO competitor analysis could be something you can do. This is also 3 checkpoints, which can be fully automated with the right retrieval and summarization agent. Data is public and it's very clear time saver. So you can use a 3-check system or any numeric score or even a color coding to indicate the fit inside your use case mapping template. Okay, so far so good. And then last page in this section, red flags and success criteria, right? So final slide on this part would be on opportunity selection. Is all about what to watch out for. So it's important, what am I aiming for? And then evaluating use cases for agentic AI, we start first with the red flags. Any undocumented or inconsistent process is a red flag. If no one can clearly explain how a task is done, or it varies widely from one person to another person, that's a red flag. No clear owner, right? If the outcome doesn't have a business stakeholder who can define the success and help to tune the process, the agent is likely to drift or fail. Or any form of vague success metrics. If you can't measure whether the agent is doing a good job or how you will prove its value, you want to be avoiding the projects, right? And rely purely on, you're not going to be designing agent purely based on a subjective feedback, right? On the flip side, right, we have positive success criteria, which are time safe. Can this agent free up hours, reduce the turnaround time? Error reduction, right? This agent improve consistency, compliance, or accuracy. User satisfaction is something that, is this something that frustrates the users or customers, and this could be made easier for them? And task completion rate. Can this agent, fully resolve a workflow or just assist? Sounds good? Any questions? Now we're going to be moving to strategic readiness for agentic AI. So basically, executive ownership is crucial. Okay, so it's very important, everybody. As we transition from, identification of the opportunities, to prepare for successful implementation, we also begin with the most critical factor, executive sponsorship, right? Agentic AI is not just another IT project. You need, strategic capability that touches the process, the people, and the system. So if there is no leadership buy-in, particularly from, business side executives, effort usually tend to stall, become isolated, or fail to scale, right? Let me share an example from earlier. Like Pets at Home, their success wasn't driven by tech alone. It was championed by senior leaders, including the chairman and the head of architecture. So the alignment enabled the fast experimentation, real resourcing, as well as the eventual rollout across the organization, right? So what's make a good sponsor? Someone with a good P&L, right? Profit loss or transformational ownership. Someone who can have a clear organizational, roadblocks. Someone who's personally invested in the outcome, right? And these are the considerations when you're going to be moving for an executive, basically a sponsorship. Foundational, which is data and infrastructure, right? Once you got the executive sponsorship, the next step to make sure data and infrastructure are ready to support the agentic systems, right? So we start with the data, right? Agent need clean, accessible, well-structured data, right? But that doesn't mean you need a perfect data lake, right? But it means that, can an agent pull the inputs that it needs? Can it, those inputs to be updated regularly, right? Are they labeled or formatted in a way that the agent can understand? Okay. So again, these are going to be through different, HR information systems, customer relationship managements, and stuff like that, right? On the infrastructure side, agents typically require, API access, some scalable hosting. Scalable hosting for large models could be, or orchestration layer could be implemented on AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure, and you name it. And you need secure environments, especially if you are handling, sensitive or regulated data. Many organizations already also adopt MLOps or AIOps practices to have a better outcome for these sections. Governance and risk management, these are essentials too, right? Because these systems don't just suggest the things, they are acting, right? So let's talk about the 4 key risks areas that you need to address for the governance and risk management. Number 1 is the hallucination. Agents powered by, these large language models can still generate incorrect or misleading content, right? And don't forget, this risk is not just about output. It's about making wrong decisions that no one can potentially catch it, right? Overconfidence and autonomous bias. So if the user assumes agents are always correct, they must stop questioning the output. This can lead to, approvals, which are leading to a flawed recommendation. Bias and fairness. Agents can learn from historical data, may replicate or even amplify a bias, right? Which is going to be especially dangerous in hiring, lending, as well as the healthcare. And last one is the data leakage or privacy, right? Agent, again, can access sensitive data. They must follow strict access controls. So, and basically, many times it's not enough to mask the data. You need the governance at the system level, okay? That's another factor. And then we get to the deployment journey. Pretty much when implementing your generative AI, it's going to be helpful to think of deployment as a journey from co-pilot, hybrid, or autopilot. So in the co-pilot mode, right, at this stage, agent's going to be assisting human, but they don't take the action on their own, right? Like an autocomplete in the Gmail or a smart suggestion box, right? Agent might draft a response, recommend next steps and all that. We have a hybrid mode, which is partially autonomous. So they might, complete simple tasks on their own, like updating a CRM or, sending a status update, but escalate or ask for an approval on higher risk steps. Then in autopilot mode, right, which is the final stage, agent can, fully autonomously just definitely within the predefined boundaries, right, make decision, execute tasks, and self-monitor. Now, this is a readiness checklist, everybody, right? So we want to make sure, think of as a pre-flight checklist before launching, any serious agentic AI initiative. So basically, things should be clear, impactful use cases, right? So you identify one or more tasks that are well defined, aligned. I've gone already through the 3-circle framework. The ROI is fine. Centralized, accessible data, right? The agents need to be able to fetch what it needs, structured customer data, knowledge articles, workflow inputs, and all that. Tech stack compatibility, making sure these API infrastructure, they are able to be plugged into the systems, including your CRMs, ticketing platforms, or any other document repository. Change readiness and training plans. So people need to know how to interact with the agents, right? And trust it. So again, any onboarding, job impact discussion, and feedback loop, right? These are important too, because people need to trust the system. In terms of security, is your legal or IT team looped in? Do you know what's considered sensitive data or not? Or do you have things in the governance environment? And last one is the outcome aligned KPIs and pilot plan, right? Right? You have already defined the success, whether it's hours saved, resolution time decrease, or user satisfaction increased. So you have to have already these ones scoped. Now, organizational change management, definitely, technology just doesn't transform organization. It's going to transform people do, right? That's why even the most powerful agentic AI initiative can fail without intentional change management, right? So you should have AI literacy at all levels, right? Not everyone needs to be a prompt engineer, but everyone needs to understand what the agents are, what they can do, what they can't, and how they work, right? Build a Gen AI champion network, right? Identify early adopters and also basically innovators across the departments. Those who are excited about the potential and willing to experiment, identify them and reframe the narrative, right? The biggest resistance often comes from the fear. Is this going to replace my job? That's why it's so important to communicate that agents are teammates, not the threats. Don't forget, they augment, not replace. This is very, very important message to be transferred. And risk mitigation techniques, right? You're going to be starting with some sandbox type of pilots, right? Begin with the low risk, non-customer facing, use internal workflows and all that, run A and B tests, right? Just like product development, test agents' performance against the, controlled group to see what's the benchmark and all that. If they are effective, go to the next level. Always use HITL or human in the loop models to make sure you have, a human confirmation on it. Monitor for drift or errors. So you should have continuous, well-defined agents which can, look at other agents and look at their performance in real time. We can use dashboard, track performance, and basically intervene early, and also document assumptions and design boundaries, right? Make it clear that the agent is what the agent is expected to do and what it's not, right? Which reduces the confusion for your stakeholders. And then basically success metric and KPIs, very important. What are your efficiency metrics? Is it cycle time? Is it average handle time for your customer interaction? Is it task completed per agent per day? Accuracy metrics. What is your resolution rate, right? What is your error rates or QA passing rate? Also, you should have all these ones alignment with the human benchmark, as well as the basically adoption metrics, right? Is it daily, weekly active users? Is it agent opt-in rates? Is it re-engagements or repeat use? As well as the ROI and your business impact, time, head count, right? Cost, avoidance, operational saving, and stuff like that are the stuff that you need to also consider. And that takes us to the future proofing with the agentic AI, everybody, right? So as I said, everybody, you need to shift the strategy, basically your thinking and basically mindset from delivering isolated use cases to building capabilities that can scale and evolve, right? So far, so good. In early days of agentic adoption, most teams focus on the specific problems, and pretty much we want to just go beyond that, right? And encourage internal sharing, basically reuse this stuff within the HR, IT, and customer service. Um, yeah. Basically, the next one is the outcome-based service model. Stop charging for, we call it let me just get this one higher. Start charging for, software licenses and shift more to the pricing like to the successful actions, right? So this is very important. You're going to be mostly moving to the outcome-based service model rather than, traditional software delivery, right? Um, so for example, in customer support, instead of paying for chatbot session, you pay per ticket resolved, right? In finance, agents that basically reconcile the invoices could be billed per invoice successfully processed. Or in lead generation, you're going to be paying for a list, right? You're not going to be paying anymore, basically, for a list. You pay for or pay per qualified lead delivered, right? So these are the other consideration. Also, in terms of preparing the human workforce, again, upskilling, agent prompt design, these are, we already discussed them, right? Some, practical skills, prompt design, agent oversight, debugging workflows and stuff like that. You need to define new roles and career path. Like you can define somebody as generative AI product owner, prompt engineers, agent trainers, or AI governance leads. And then culture of continuous innovations. So pretty much, if agentic AI is going to grow in your organization, you need also more than infrastructure. You need the culture which support all these experimentation, learning, and evolution. So you need psychological safety for experimentation, right? Make it okay to try, to test, and even fail, so people won't explore new workflows if they are afraid of being blamed, right? So celebrate learning from the failure. So treat failed agent pilots more as a valuable signals. Um, why it didn't work? Why did we learn? What did we learn from that failure and all that? And set your OKRs, objective and key result around the innovation velocity, right? So don't just measure success by ROI, measure how many experiment team runs and how quickly they iterate or how many ideas get prototyped. Last one will be empower teams to lead the pilots, right? We already discussed that, right? So also we come from use cases to capabilities. So there are many tools already out there like Microsoft Power Automate, Copilot Studio, Relevance AI, which make it easier and possible for non-developers to build simple agents, connect them to the enterprises, and test them safely in a sandbox environment. Technically, we're democratizing innovation beyond the developers, right? Now, a marketing analyst or an HR coordinator can spin up easily a prototype agent to summarize the survey responses or automate a report without waiting in line for IT support, right? It's very important. No code, low code, right? Makes a lot of non-technical people capable of doing that. And capability roadmap template. Okay, build a roadmap, right? Make sure all your agentic efforts are aligned and scalable, and you need more than isolated wins. You need a capability roadmap, which basically prioritize and coordinate agent development across different type of business unit over time. And that's it. So you're going to be adding the columns for owner, priority, stages, as well as, success criteria in your organization. And example tech stack overview. Okay, now at the last point, We look at the kind of technology stack that powers agentic AI system in practice. So pretty much we start with foundation model. These foundation models are mostly large language models, which power the agents. Like these are reasoning and language capabilities. They come from, the platforms such as Claude, GPT-4, Llama, Mistral, and all that. So some are, more general purpose, while the others are more cost effective or open source. So you're going to be leveraging all those LLMs. In the orchestration layers, there are some, other tools such as, LangGraph, LangChain, AutoGen, Crew AI, N8N, these are more technical, right? Some of them are low code, no code, that you can use to break down the goals into the subtasks and to be able to manage back end, basically back and forth type of between the agents and the tools. So these are the orchestration layer for you. And then you have agent memory stores. You can, because don't forget, you need to remember the context. And we can be using, Redis, Pinecone, Wave, basically OpenSearch, Kendra as a vector-based type of memory and the semantic search that most of these agent AI system needs. And then you need an API layer, which allows, communicating with your CRM, enterprise resource planning, and all that. And finally, at the end is going to be the monitoring, right? Which is very critical into the what agents are doing. Think of, as dashboards, some alerting and analytics system, like you can use open telemetry, right? Especially important for, compliance, debugging, as well as measuring the impact. So together, this tech stack enables agentic systems that are not only intelligent, but also actionable, integrated, and safe to deploy at scale. So what did we cover, everybody? We pretty much went through the agentic AI, right, which is a leap forward, right? It's not just another layer of automation. It's about the intelligent system that can plan, reason, act, and adapt. We look at the opportunity, which is real, right? Today, I give you lots of examples on that. Success comes from the alignment, not just the tech. So basically, the best performing agent deployment start with the strong use case selection, executive sponsorship support, as well as solid data foundation plus empowered teams. And then lastly, start small, show the value, and scale smart. Thank you so much, everybody. We tried to about 90 minutes, to make best of finding the opportunities, right? And open if anybody have any questions. And if you have a closing point, I hope that you can do that now. And then if anybody have a question, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Well, actually, there's a really good question. I'm kind of on the edge of my seat about it too. Ajit in the webinar chat has a really good question about accountability. If you can't see it, I'll read it, but
yes,
you hopefully should see it.
Okay, it's a very good question, Ajit. Actually, that is one of the most challenging area of the agent, which is the authority, right? Is the authority. That is actually anywhere that there is a responsibility, right? Let's say it's an insurance claim, right? If I automate that, at the end of the day, somebody claiming that insurance, even if the agent does that, you're correct. Because of that, the ones that involve any form of accountability, there should be any human at the end to approve it. So no matter how many steps in automation an agent goes, if there is accountability, even in a stock trading, right, in your account, you're going to be the one at the end most of the time, which you need to confirm that although the bot finds the opportunity, is right before the execution, a human needs to approve that. So basically, there is another layer as called human task, right? If there is a liability behind that, there is a human confirmation needed. Very good question. Thank you.
Yes, and yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking that, and thanks for your great answer, Sean. And I just wanted to say, I've really learned a ton, and you also touched on SEO, which is something I do, and I'm looking for some more things I can automate with it. So I sort of had a question too, if you don't mind. So I've been using Gemini Advanced and making Gemini gems. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but I think I've been sort of making little agents with the gems, because I'm doing stuff like just like what you said, the SEO competitive analysis gem. And I'm
Exactly.
sure I'm not using it to its potential, but I'm really glad you said that. And I'm sure if I found something in there that I'm doing, then a lot of other people did as well.
Definitely. There's a lot of no-code platform coming out that you don't even need to be in IT to make a complete agent system. But with the drag and drop, basically, all can be handled. Hopefully, in the next one, I'm gonna do some demo of those no-code platforms for the people to be able to see how fast you can actually implement that.
Yes, that would be very cool. You know what, I will put something in the chat to just mention if there's anything that maybe we could follow on with. Let me just make sure everyone can get this. Sorry about all the links, but when we email as well, because we'll be emailing the video for this, so you can watch it again or pass it on to friends and family. And we'll include these as well, but just some good follow-on courses if you're interested. The very first link there is just our generative AI training, so you can find all of our courses there. We've got public dates for individuals if you're just one person needing training. But if you have a team, we can also work with you to customize a private course for any of these courses that I've put here in the chat. We also have some webinars coming up. We've got another one this week, and the following week, and I think even the following week, and it's all on Agentic AI or Gen AI just in general. So we'll be pushing that out as well. But no, great session. Really appreciate your time here, Sean. And thank you guys all for joining us. We had so many folks who stayed with us to the bitter end. It's an hour and a half of great info. So really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everybody. If any question, you can always reach out on my LinkedIn also if you have any question there, and I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye, everyone.